Okay, so we're continuing our work with finding the main idea. And so we go to our next article, How Pluto Stopped Being a Planet by Tyrone Nielsen. Okay, so we're going to start reading. For decades, people believed our solar system had 9 planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. But in 2006, a group of astronomers decided that Pluto was not a true planet, but something else, a dwarf planet. The term dwarf planet might make you think that Pluto was kicked out of the Planet Club solely because of its size. And it's true that Pluto is small compared with the planets. If Earth were the size of a basketball, Pluto would be the size of a golf ball. But Pluto's size isn't why most astronomers now call it a dwarf planet. So, why the change to Pluto's status? Here's why. In August 2006, astronomers came up with a new definition of planet. To be a planet, they said, an object has to meet 3 conditions. It has to orbit the sun directly. It can't be a moon orbiting a planet. It has to be massive enough for its own gravity to pull it into the shape of a ball. It has to have cleared its neighborhood of smaller objects around its orbit. In other words, during the trips around the sun, a planet must draw smaller objects into itself or pull them into its orbit or fling them off into space. Pluto does not meet the third condition. It hasn't cleared its neighborhood the way the planets have. It moves within a field of rock and ice objects that it cannot clear away. That's why most astronomers now call Pluto a dwarf planet. Not all astronomers accept the change to Pluto's status. Among other reasons, they feel that, quote, clearing the neighborhood isn't a well-defined concept. But most astronomers and museums and textbooks and teachers feel the new definition is clear enough to be useful. So long, Pluto. At least you're still with us as a dwarf planet. All right, now let's look at our close reader habits. It says, how does the article explain why astronomers reclassified Pluto? Reread the text. Underline key details explaining why the astronomers changed Pluto's status. So it's telling you to reread it. We're going back to the text. You're going to get sick of me saying that, but that's what we do. We go back to the text. Now, if we were in class, what I would have you do if we were together, live and in person, you would actually do this, and then we would go over it together. So what I'm going to do instead is we're going to go back. We're going to look at that last idea. It says, underline key details explaining why the astronomers changed Pluto's status. Well, we know it starts around paragraph 3 and 4. So I'm going to go ahead and go there. In August 2006, astronomers came up with a new definition of planet. To be a planet, they said, an object has to meet 3 conditions. It had to orbit the sun directly, so it can't be like a moon. It has to be massive enough for its own gravity to pull it into the shape of a ball. And it has to have cleared its neighborhood of smaller objects around its orbit. And then down here it says Pluto does not meet the third condition. Okay, so what does Pluto not do? It hasn't cleared its neighborhood the way the planets have. It moves within a field of rock and ice objects that it cannot clear away. And what's that third condition? In order to be a planet, you have to clear your neighborhood of smaller objects around your orbit. So we're going to underline these things. This would be the reason that Pluto, according to this article, is no longer considered a proper planet, but a dwarf planet. All right, now let's go to our activities. All right, so we have multiple choice questions. Eventually, you will do questions like this on your own. Sometimes we'll go over them together. Sometimes you'll do them on your own. The reason we're going to go over them together today is because this format is the way that the LEAP is set up for English, for science, for social studies, these part A and B questions. Years ago, when they first started this format, if a student was to get, for instance, let's look here, you have question 1. It's part A and part B. If a student got part A right and part B wrong, or vice versa, they got partial credit. However, for the last 2 years, and really last 3 years, because we didn't do LEAP last year, for the last 3 years, the policy has been, if a student gets any part incorrect, either part A or part B, the whole question is wrong. There's no partial credit. So you have to be extra careful to read the question the part A and part B, to go back to the text, because that's the whole point of part B. In these questions is almost always going back to the text. How do you know that part A is correct? How do you know that you've made the right selection? You have to have the best evidence. And so it's very important not to rush through because there is no partial credit. Okay, so it says, this question has two parts. Answer part A, then part B. Part A, what is the main idea of the science article by Tyrone Nielsen? Okay, is it A, a group of astronomers decided that Pluto is a dwarf planet? Is it B, Pluto is large enough to be a moon but too small to be a planet? Is it C, many astronomers are pleased that Pluto is not a planet anymore? Or is it D, some astronomers still believe Pluto should be called a planet? So you'll have this option on your test of crossing out answers that you know are incorrect when you take the leap. So hopefully we all realize that where it says many astronomers are pleased that Pluto is not a planet anymore, it never said that. So we're just going to go ahead and cross that out. Pluto is large enough to be a moon but too small to be a planet. I don't remember it saying that. So I'm going to cross that out. Now we have two options. Would it be A, a group of astronomers decide that Pluto is a dwarf planet? We know this is true. D, some astronomers still believe Pluto should be called a planet. We also know this is true. So here's the key. We have two answers that are true in terms of they were both in the text. But let's look at the question. The question says, what is the main idea? This was in the text, but it's not the main idea. No, the main idea would be that a group of astronomers decide that Pluto is a dwarf planet. So we're going to go ahead. I don't like that. Let's try it this way. So a group of astronomers decide that Pluto is a dwarf planet. Most students get this right. But now let's look at part B. Which statement from the text best supports the answer to part A? Okay, this is our key word right here, best. Which best supports? That means that there might be an option that's okay, but it's not the best evidence. And so figuring out the difference between the best and what's just okay is going to be an important thing. So let's go ahead. We're going to eliminate some answers. For decades, people believed our solar system had 9 planets. B, and it's true that Pluto is small compared with the planets. C, in August 2006, astronomers came up with a new definition of planet. Or D, it has to be massive enough for its own gravity to pull it into the shape of a ball. All right, so for decades, people believed our solar system had 9 planets. That's true, but does that have anything to do with this? Is that really going to support our answer? No. So we do that. And it's true that Pluto is small compared with the planets. That's true, but so we'll just hold off. C, in August 2006, astronomers came up with a new definition of planet. We know that's true. D, it has to be massive enough for its own gravity to pull it into the shape of a ball. That's true, but that had nothing to do with why Pluto was made something other than a planet. So that's not relevant at all. So we're going to take that out. All right, so now we have two options. A group of astronomers decide that Pluto is a dwarf planet. Did they do that because it's true that Pluto is small? Sometimes students choose this answer because they see small and dwarf and they think, oh, there's a connection there. But if we reread the text and we underline the parts that we were supposed to, we should know what the correct answer is going to be. It's going to be in August 2006, astronomers came up with a new definition of planet. How does that relate? They decided that Pluto is a dwarf planet. Why did they decide that? Because C, the astronomers came up with a new definition of planet. That's why it's a dwarf planet. Undo. Here we go. So we had to get part A and part B correct. Otherwise, we wouldn't get credit for that. There's no partial credit now. So we have to be able to go back to the text. We have to know what we've read. So think about that. We read the article one time through. We read the second half of the article again and underlined the important things that the text told us to underline. Then we answered a question that most of us probably could get correct, but then we had to have the best evidence. And three of those four options were things that were actually in the article, but we had to have comprehended what we read in order to know which was the best evidence. Okay, so now we go to question 2. It says, which of these is most clearly a key detail of the passage? Oh, we're doing this thing again. So instead of best, now it says most clearly. Most clearly. Most clearly a key detail. Okay, real quick, remember a key detail is something that supports, it holds up the main idea. The main idea rests on key details. So we want a key detail. All right, and it's true that Pluto is small compared with the planets. If Earth were the size of a basketball, Pluto would be the size of a golf ball. It hasn't cleared its neighborhood the way the planets have. Not all astronomers accept the change to Pluto's status. All four of these were in the article. They're direct quotes from the article. That means they are all details from the article, but only one is a key detail. And if we did our work that we were supposed to do leading up to this, we should be able to figure that out. We should know, why has its status changed? It's because of C. I'm not even going to do the elimination, because we should hopefully know that if we did the work, it hasn't cleared its neighborhood the way the planets have. That is the reason. That is the key. That is the answer. And the reason we know it's the answer is because we read the text through. We had to read part of it again. We had to do all this work building up to know the answer. So by now, you probably know, based off the article, why Pluto is not considered a planet. You probably even know the three types of qualifications to be a planet and which one Pluto doesn't qualify for, because we've done all that work and all that annotation. Okay. So 4 says, use the information in your organizer to explain how the key details you identified support the main idea of paragraph 3. All right, they wanted you to do this here. We're not together, so we can't really do that. But let's go down to page 17. Oh, sorry, we have here. Okay, so tell you what we'll do. We'll stop for today.